Hello. I recently watched the 5-part mini-series Chernobyl, directed by Johan Renck and starring Jared Harris, Stellan Skarsgård and Emily Watson. It was fascinating, riveting, gripping, but not overly horrifying. The measure of restraint and sensitivity displayed by Renck and his collaborators really shows the degree to which less is more, and that's how that has always been the case. There are, involving the particular nuclear reaction accident which took place in Chernobyl in 1986, a number of instances where the filmmakers could have gone further in terms of showing the body horror and potential horrific incidents that occurred afterwards, but they chose not to. They left a lot to the imagination, and I applaud that. Riveting performances from Harris, Skarsgård and Watson is interesting because Watson and Skarsgård many moons ago worked on Breaking the Waves together, which brought Watson an Oscar nomination, so it was nice to see them back together again. Excellent TV series. As I say, if this were a feature film, Chernobyl would be in my top 94, no questions asked. It's absolutely fantastic in every single department. I did a soundtrack review regarding, I can't pronounce her surname, but Hilda G. I'll just call it Hilda G for now. It was a sound design effort, but the way that she amplified that kind of pulse that indicates radiation and Geiger counters, and sort of going in there with hazmat suits and that kind of like eerie feeling underneath. She perfectly conveyed that. And whether you're listening to the music on its own or watching the miniseries, what she did was absolutely right. Something melodic, even something along the lines of like John Williams' Presumed Innocent, which is a very low-key score, wouldn't have been right for Chernobyl. What Hilda did was spot on, absolutely first rate. Now, in terms of the show itself, it's 5 episodes covering about 5.5 hours, and we see events surrounding, lead up to and the aftermath of the incident in Chernobyl. An excellent cast, as I say again, led by Jared Harris, who worked to put out the fire and also contain the radiation from spreading. Obviously there's a number of individuals, firefighters and workers who were at the plant who got exposed to the radiation. And as I earlier mentioned, the degree of sensitivity and restraint which Johan Renck and his collaborators display on this is absolutely noteworthy and a model for how such things should be done anyway. Less is more. You don't need to see what's happening to the later stages of that radiation. You get a glimpse in the early stages, but the really horrific stuff, I mean, Emily Watson's character alludes to one of the later stages just verbally, and from that you can glean enough information to know that it's horrifying and just it would have been inhumane to show that, I think. So kudos to them for doing it. And there's things involving animals and a birth which again they held back rather than rubbing our noses in it, and I applaud that. I think the trifecta of Harris, Skarsgård and Watson is really the soul of Chernobyl, and all three are excellent in their respective roles. The initial hostility between Skarsgård and Harris, Skarsgård is sceptical of what Harris thinks is actually happening. He thinks it's just a fire, just something that needs to be put out. They nearly fly over the site at one point, and Harris says, "No, you don't want to be doing that." So, although some liberties are taken with the historical record of what happened, the moment by moment events that we see and the people that got caught up in all this. There's a girlfriend of one of the firefighters who is pregnant, and she goes to visit the firefighter. He's been exposed to radiation, and that's a whole sort of, and it leaves you with that cold feeling in the pit of your gut. But it doesn't, as I say, I mean, I think a guiding maxim for filmmakers, whether in television or cinema, is you can break the viewer's heart, just don't blacken their soul. Because Chernobyl allows us to see some of the horror but not get overly sort of enmeshed in it. It allows the viewer to stand back, see it objectively, experience also the rather subjective reality of what these people went through, but like I say, in a very carefully modulated way. It's a towering example of what television has come to do in certain respects better than cinema, and this is a model for how it should be done. Like I say, this is probably one of the best television programs I've ever seen. Very little comes close, at least in the modern age. There are animated series that I like, but if we're talking, you know, cold hard reality facts of what is objectively the best programming, Chernobyl is definitely in the inner circle of a much bigger picture. Tremendous cinematography, which, while there are some handheld shots, it's not overly distracting, I don't think. It's certainly not Blair Witch Project, if you're concerned about that. But edited by Jinx Gregory, I think his name is. So I did have Simon Smith and Jinx, I forget his surname, but Jinx and Simon did tremendous work in the cutting room, putting this together, the pieces of what the individual moments are, and then bringing it together and allowing it to coalesce, you know. Interestingly, Michael Kahn, who worked on Schindler's List, said about that film, he said, when you're editing that kind of project, you have to disassociate. You have to look at everything as a scene, and you have to put it together the best you can, you know, do what's best for each scene. And then when it comes together, that's when you get the full force. And that's what we get with Chernobyl, without the extremes of Schindler's List, obviously. It's an excellent show, highly recommended, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Probably the best television program of the decade, 2010 to 2019. It came out in 2019. For more film and soundtrack reviews, please visit Betty Jo Tucker's website, Real Talk Movie Reviews. On Facebook you can find my pages, Hypnotic Movie Reviews and Hypnotic Soundtrack Reviews. I am Richard Jack Smith, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.